Good morning, Sasham. This is Sal St. George, and it's been a long time since we've seen each other. And I thought it might be kind of just the right about time now that we can get together and talk about some of our favorite things. I want to introduce my son, Darren.
Hey, everybody. Hi.
And we're sitting out back, and we're just going to talk about a couple of things that maybe you had questions about. But before we do that, Darren has been in our company since he was 5 weeks old. And we're going to go into that, how we became part of it. But behind the camera today, we have Cassandra St. George, and that is Darren's wife. And she's coming over because they are creating a new production for us.
Hi.
When do you do?
End of July.
End of July. It's a heck of a world to be bringing a newborn into, but we're going to make the best of it. Okay, thank you, Cassandra. She's going to be manning the camera for us today, so that we look good for you.
Yeah, as best we can.
So the first thing I want to talk about, people are always asking me, what am I up to? What are the new projects I'm working on? And I have a couple of books I want to show you. The first one of my favorites, the old Andy Griffith Show. And this book is called Andy and Don, and it's the making of a friendship. They met each other when they were on Broadway doing No Time for Sergeants. It's a terrific read. What's interesting about it is the early years of Don Knotts. Did you know he was a ventriloquist? That's what he started out as a ventriloquist, and he was working, he was in the Army. And he finally got to the point where he was really disgusted depending on the dummy. And as they were leaving one day, he was on a ship. He threw the dummy overboard and said, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to work strictly as a comic. And then he gets noticed by Steve Allen, and the rest of it is history.
I'm surprised he never, when you say he does ventriloquism, I'm surprised he never did it on the Andy Griffith Show. But he kind of walked away from it.
I don't think he wanted to have anything to do with it. He wanted to concentrate on his acting abilities, his comic abilities, and creating a great character.
I could see him doing more of a live dummy act than being a ventriloquist.
Yeah. Do you have any memories of the Andy Griffith Show?
Andy Griffith Show, it holds two places in my life. I remember going through the entire series when I was in college. I remember I brought all the DVDs with me, and at 12 a.m. when you're supposed to be studying, but you feel too guilty to sleep, I would be watching Andy Griffith making grilled cheese in my room. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite episode?
It's Opie. I don't know if I could pick one, but it's going to be one with Opie. He's the wisest character on that show. He's always the one who knows the right thing to do.
That's a great reaction because, according to all the books I've read, the Andy Griffith Show always started out their new season when they would have their first episode. It always had to be an Opie episode. That was what drew the people in. So you're right on the mark in terms of Opie. My favorite episode was Opie and the birds, when he is given a slingshot and he accidentally kills a mother. I think it was a blue jay, maybe? No,
it wasn't a blue jay.
It wasn't a blue jay.
Yeah.
But he accidentally kills the mother. Bird falls out of the tree. He accidentally kills it. And then he has to nurse all those birds back to health again. I have a book written by the writers of the Andy Griffith Show. And one of the writers, Harvey Bullock, was saying he sat at the typewriter. He had the whole story there, but he didn't know how he was going to end it. He knew that Opie had to let the birds fly. And as they're all flying out, he's sitting in front of the typewriter, and suddenly he looks down and there's words. And he said, where did this come from? And the ending of the episode is Opie saying to his dad, gee, my cage looks so empty now. And Andy replies, yeah, but look how full our trees are. So it was a terrific ending for the episode.
But I know you've told me stories about that. When I was living at home as a kid, you'd come downstairs ecstatic about a piece that you just wrote, and it seems to just be like conjured out of thin air. It surprises even you. Here, I'll just hold as that drives away. Hold on a sec for sound.
Yeah. We got the maintenance crew driving through it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
and a groundhog. I don't know if you can see him, but he's scurrying behind us as well. But I remember you coming down, and you're just surprised at your own writing
It's
as
true.
it pops up on the screen.
Yeah, the characters take over. It's wonderful. Okay, next book. I'm putting together a brand new lecture. We've done the story of I Love Lucy, but I wanted to do something that was before and after Desi. This is a book called Laughs, Luck, and Lucy, and it's written by Jess Oppenheimer, who was their executive producer during all those years. But he knew Lucy before and after, and I want to get his perspective on what actually happened, why everything fell apart for Lucy and Desi. I can pretty much tell you the workload. Lucy always said they never thought Desi Lou was going to become this big mammoth studio. She said all we wanted to do was work together, have a nice family, and that's it. She never thought it was going to turn into this. And when the program succeeded, they made so much money they were able to buy their old studio where they worked, which was RKO.
Mm-hmm.
Once they bought RKO, it converted it into Desi Lou, and all of Lucy's friends said, "Oh, you got a studio? Can we film our show there?" And that's how they just exploded with people coming in to see their programs, film their programs.
And you'll see Desi Lou. Watch when you're watching. I was about to say Nick at Night. I don't think we have Nick at Night anymore, do we?
No.
But when you're watching these old shows, watch the end of the credits, and a lot of times it's a Desi Lou production.
Yeah.
Andrew Griffith. Andy Griffith is a Desi Lou.
Danny Thomas show, Andy Griffith show, Star Trek, Mission Impossible.
Danny Thomas, isn't he affiliated with Desi Lou?
No. Danny Thomas
Or Dick
was
Van Dyke?
involved with the Dick Van
Okay.
Dyke show.
Yeah.
He and Sheldon Leonard were the ones that put that all together. But that's a whole other story.
Different story.
And we're not going to go into that today. But it's a good question. Okay, next book. It's called Laughing Matters. And it was written by Larry Goldberg. Who's Larry Goldberg? I'm glad you asked. Larry happened to be the writer who worked on Your Show of Shows with Sid Caesar, went on to work with every comedian from Bob Hope, Lucille Ball, and all. Wrote A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, Tootsie, but his claim to fame is he was the gentleman responsible with another gentleman named Gene Reynolds that converted the movie version of MASH into the successful TV version of MASH, and he was with them for many years. It was he who established the format of the TV series, and brilliant writer. I just love reading about him. And it's funny, I spoke to some of my online people, and I just got a phone call from one of them, and he said, "I saw you were talking about the book. I ordered it on Amazon. I just got it, and I'm reading it now." So I love that people, for some reason, believe everything I say. I'm making it all up as I go along. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, Larry Gelbart and MASH. MASH is just such a phenomenal series. It blew me away the first time I saw it, and then I felt fortunate. Oh, we have more sound coming by, more maintenance workers.
That's okay.
I felt really fortunate. My wife had never seen the series,
Oh,
and so when we
Cassandra, where'd you grow up?
yeah,
Yeah,
she had
it
never
was
seen
on
it.
for 11 years. Okay.
Yeah, but we borrowed all of the DVDs, 11 seasons worth of DVDs from my grandfather, and we sat down together and just, day by day, you start picking away at these episodes, and it's established itself in our lives as the gold standard for television. I really have a hard time finding any other show that could be better.
I have two shows that influence my writing all the time. MASH is the first, and the second is All in the Family. And what it is, and how they influenced everybody else, the Mary Tyler Moore Show and everybody else, what was interesting is they were able to take a comic situation and flip it into a dramatic situation, and then get you back into a comic situation. I mean, you could be crying one second and laughing the next. Brilliant writing, and I think one of my favorite episodes is when Radar leaves the series, and Klinger has to take over for him. But more importantly, BJ is upset because when Radar gets home, he meets with Peg and Erin, BJ's daughter and wife. And when the little girl sees Radar, she says, "Hi, Daddy," thinking it's her father, and it just breaks him apart. And it's a really wonderfully well written story, really well written. Go ahead.
It is, and you're talking about them flip-flopping between comedy and drama. I think they're also, though, the first to establish that a sitcom can be dramatic.
Yeah.
That it doesn't need to just be laughs, laughs, laughs. And a lot of the episodes are hysterical.
Yeah.
Their jokes are brilliant, but what stands out, what makes it such an exceptional series, is how heartfelt and heart-wrenching these episodes can be at the same time.
That was Larry Gelbart and that was Alan Alda. Alan would not do the series if he thought it was going to be another Sergeant Bilko or a McHale's Navy. He did not want that. We were in the middle of the Vietnam War. He wanted to reflect that these were people's lives. And I think that's what makes the series, what makes the series really interesting is in the course of their 11 years run, think of how many characters actually left the series and they had to be replaced. And when Larry Gelbart decided to kill off Colonel Blake, which was groundbreaking at the time, people were really angry at him. They were saying, how do you do that on a sitcom? You're breaking our hearts. But he said, this is war, and it was really well done. But he leaves and along comes Colonel Potter. Trapper John leaves. Here comes BJ. Frank leaves. Frank Burns. And who comes in? Winchester. Every time somebody left, they replaced them with somebody equally as good, if not more identifiable to the public.
Yeah, they really did. I mean, that show taught me that no character is indispensable. I remember when we were watching Monk, if any of you watched Monk when it was airing, and I know they still have, it's in syndication, but when they changed their his foil after the third season, I think, or second season, Sharona was his first assistant, and then he has a second. And when they announced she wasn't coming back, I was really surprised. I said, she's fundamental to the program. How can they just uproot all of that history? And I remember you saying it. Look at MASH. Look at what can be done. And it's not just moving forward, but enhancing. MASH just seems to elevate each time they move forward.
And we've had that situation when we create our own stage productions. We've had many actors that have been with us for many, many years. And then for a variety of reasons, they leave, and then we have to replace them. And from the audience point of view, they go, where did she go? Where did he go? I really like that person. And then they realize, gee, I like this new one pretty well. And this is a good example of it. Darren is portraying Danny DeLuca for the last couple of years. And now, if he ever left, I think we would have a revolt on our hands.
But I still know the history that I'm coming from. And there were very talented actresses before Danny DeLuca was introduced into the story. And it was intimidating coming in. I knew you really have to step up your game and show them who you are and what your personality is.
Let's go backwards. Now, this is a good point. How you got into acting?
How I got into acting. It would be more challenging to say how I could have avoided acting. All right, if we're working backwards, I'm obviously working with my father, and we have stage productions and lectures and all sorts of fun things. But when I went to school and was going into college, I remember you telling me repeatedly that I could major or focus on any career that I wanted. Anything that interested me, I could pursue it to my heart's content, except entertainment. That was the only thing that was off the table. I could not pursue entertainment. So when I went to university.
Tell them where you went.
Fordham University.
And you spent a year where?
I spent a year studying in London at the London School of Economics. So I'm
quite proud of that. That's why I added that in. Okay, continue.
We're still paying for it, so it's a good reminder of pride. I got as far away from entertainment as I could. I didn't major, I didn't minor. I had a dual major in psychology, focusing on child psychology, and then also dual majored because I found more spare time for communications and media. So it was really
But he was involved with theater the whole time.
yes, as much as I could. I worked with the plays, and they have the theatrical society, but nothing formal, nothing on my degree. No, I don't think I've ever taken an acting class. Come to think of it, I've hosted, I've taught, I taught. So when I get out of college, I need to get a job. That's the big trick for college. Everybody's so focused on what your major is going to be. The big challenge is when it's over, who's going to pay you? And the job I could get was substituting. So I started substituting at a school, and at the end of the year, I said, "This is really great." I went to my principal. I enjoy it here, but I need health insurance. I need a paycheck, a reliable one. And she said, "But you're not a teacher." And I said, "I know I'm not a teacher, but I could do your plays, and I could teach drama. I could teach entertainment." And she said, well, she was very, very thoughtful and considerate, and said, "Come back with a curriculum, a full proposal of what you could teach my students, and we'll talk about it." And that summer, I got to work learning what a curriculum was and what it could be, and applying all of the lessons that you've shared with me about entertainment, the history of entertainment, and what it means to be a performer. Not an actor, not a dancer, not a singer, but a performer, and compose those into a curriculum. And that was really something. When I presented it, she said, "Absolutely, we'd be honored to have this program as part of our curriculum."
And more importantly, not great money, but he got a title.
A title?
Yeah, what was your
Oh, yes.
you were the chairman.
Yes, of the theatrical and fine arts department. So
If you can't give them money, give them a title.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
it looks good on paper.
Yeah.
But that's the later half of my life.
Yeah.
Just recently.
But going all the way backwards, Mary's not here right now. I wish she were. But when I first began, some of you may already know that I knew Bud Abbott. I had received a stack of old vaudeville scripts and such from him, and that was the genesis. I created a program. Now we're going way back now. This is the late 70s, early 80s, and I created a road show. And it was only there used to be a place here on the island called the Island Squire. It was owned by a gentleman named John Weil. I was working as a stand-up at the time, and I worked at his place quite often. And one day he came to me and he said, "You're always talking about these Bud Abbott and Lou Costello scripts that you have." He said, "Would you ever consider putting together an old-time vaudeville show, burlesque show?" And I said, "Yeah, I would love to do that. It would have to be the way Bud and Lou did it. It'd have to be no nudity, no stripping. It had to be just funny and a lot of music." And he said, "Well, if you would put one together, I'll guarantee you an 8-week run." We had never done anything like that. I had never produced a show before. But the first thing I did is I went out and I found a choreographer. She was a former Rockette from New York City. And I got a costume maker, and I did the whole thing, put together the show, and believe it or not, that 8-week run ended up running for 14 years. And we would travel working in dinner theater. Back then we had dinner theaters and nightclubs and all kinds of universities, colleges, and we went from New York down to Florida and back and forth for years, and it was a great run. But in the middle of that, this little guy appears 5 weeks to the day after he's born. He's on the road with us. I read Alan Alda's book, and he did the same thing with his dad. His father would be working on the stage. He'd put him, Alan Alda, on the side of the stage in the wings to watch, and that's what he did.
And those are my memories. I have these images as a very young child of certain seats in different theaters where I would be allowed to sit. If it was in the lighting booth or the sound booth, or if it was the first seat at on the in front of the stage. Those are the images I have.
And I can't remember how old you were, maybe 4 or 5. I taught him his first joke, and at the end of the performance, I'd always bring him up, and we would do the joke together.
Yep.
You know, that was a long time ago.
And now Cassandra and I, we have a little one, Colin. He's 3, but sure enough, I went on stage when I was 5 weeks old. So for him, when he turned 4 weeks old, we made sure to bring him on stage to a production we were working on, so he can make his stage debut.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yes.
But entertainment, education has been my life. I accidentally stumbled into everything, and it ended up becoming a livelihood. I've never had a job. I've never worked for anybody. I've always been self-employed. I've taken every hobby I ever had and turned it into an occupation. And basically, if you have a drive, if you have a desire, and it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't really matter. If you can find something that really tickles you, something that really gets inside you, and you say, I've got to try it, go for it. Doesn't matter how big or small it is. And that's basically now, what's interesting, I'm learning from Darren, and he's teaching me a lot about technology. What you're seeing right now, dear Anne Marie over at Sachem has been pleading with me to put something together for you folks. I could never do it if it wasn't for Darren and Cassandra. I would never be able to put this together for you.
It's a family affair, all of it, soup to nuts. Every show, it's a family affair.
It is.
Yeah.
It truly is.
I just want to say you're right about having to take those hobbies, take your passions, and turn them into a profession. And if this is the time to do it, the world around us, this is the time to take those passions and really do pursue them, because we have the time and we have the opportunity. And while we rebuild our world as we know it, it's your chance to make your own contribution to it. So it's worth a shot.
So I'll tell you what caught my interest. We've been doing some online talks with people, and one of the people, I received a phone call from somebody. By the time you see this, it's going to be long over, so it really doesn't matter at this point. But they were related to George Burns. And I'll tell you one quick story. They were traveling to Las Vegas. They knew George was appearing on stage at the Las Vegas. So they said, let's go and see him. They get to the casino, to the nightclub, and they can't get in. It's sold out. It's George Burns. The whole place is packed. But they said, well, we're here anyway. Let's go backstage and at least say hi to our uncle. And they go backstage and they see George. And he said, are you going to see the show? And they said, no, we tried. There's no seating. There's no place for us to sit. He said, just give me a minute. And he goes to his manager, Irving Fine, and he speaks with him. Next thing you know, it's a husband and wife and their 2 kids, son and daughter. And the kids are about 12 and 13 years old. And he gets them seats on the wing, right in the wing of the show, so that they can see the whole thing right from the stage, which is kind of interesting. The opening act for George Burns at that point was Charo. Who remembers Charo? I'm sure you do. The Coochie Coochie girl. She was the married to Xavier Cugat. Everybody, I'm sure my audience is going to remember Charo. But she was wild, crazy. You've never had an experience seeing her. Just YouTube her once and you'll see what she's like. She's absolutely insane. Really, always doing bumps and grinds and gyrating, and the music. She was a singer.
Is this the original Madonna, Lady Gaga kind of?
She influenced everybody. I mean, she did things back then in the 60s and 70s that they're still emulating today. Anyway, Charo's the opening act. The 4 of them are sitting in the wings. In the middle of her act, she has to do a costume change. She runs to where they are, drops her top, puts on her other costume, and gives their young 13-year-old son sexual experience for the first time. He had never seen anything like that, and it stays with him to this day.
I'd imagine so.
But I just thought that was a funny story. Charo didn't care. She just ran back there, switched clothes.
No, I don't think anybody would care.
Yeah.
You're just looking at the clock, and you have
that in our shows right now.
We do, yeah. Quick changes, and you don't care what's going on or who's watching. You need to get it done because a lot of these changes, you may only have 20 seconds, 25 seconds. Pretty much under 30 seconds is a really fast change. Under 30 seconds is a big challenge and requires rehearsal.
We can't wait to get back to work. And I'm sure everyone here can't wait to get back out again. We don't know, none of us know when we're going to be able to go back to a library and do a lecture. I don't see how. There's no way to prophesize when that's going to happen.
Or sit down in the theater and watch a show.
But we will be happy if you want us to come back again and talk to you about different things. Send us questions, and we'll be happy to answer anything that you have. I want to tell you a little bit of a story. It's kind of unique. I was doing one of my lectures at another library, and afterwards, I have so many really lovely followers. I can't thank you enough for coming to all my programs. So I finished the lecture. It was the Yankee Doodle Dandy lecture, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And,
we're talking about that in June.
Yeah. And afterwards, they come over to me. I wish I could remember their names. I really do. I can't remember all of you. But they come over and they said, we were cleaning our house out. We found this and we were about to throw it in the trash. And we said, you know what? Sal would probably appreciate having this. And they handed it to me. And it was a book. I love books. I can't tell you enough. Anne-Marie can validate that. It's called Cagney on Cagney. It's his autobiography. It was a bestseller written by James Cagney. Why was this important to me? Some of you may know, Anne-Marie knows, about a year and a half ago, my wife woke up, Mary woke up, and there was smoke in the house, and we had a massive house fire that destroyed everything. Everything was gone, including nearly 1,500 books that I had collected, at least, over the years. Books mean everything to me.
Every
books,
room.
Yeah.
Every room.
In every room we had books. And basically I love these types of books. I love autobiographies. I love biographies. Anything about the arts. Anything about history. Anything about the making of movies. They handed me this book, and they had no clue that we had this house fire where I lost all of that. This was one of the books that I lost, and they somehow brought it to me not knowing about it. I just find that, serendipity? Just a terrific story, and I just wanted to share that with you.
Even during difficult times, you can find the gratitude and thoughtfulness of others, and that's what we need to focus on today.
Yeah. So, we'll come back again.
Yep.
We'll come back again if you want us to, and we'll have tons of stories that we can tell you about the making of our programs. Oh, some of you are asking, what are we working on next? We don't know. We had a wonderful show planned for Stony Brook.
Don't say the name, though.
Don't say the name?
No, don't.
Oh,
because they're going to want it, and we can't guarantee it.
We can't guarantee it.
No.
There's no
Good
way of
names.
us knowing
Exciting
it.
stuff.
We had two big names that we were going to have as our special guest star. Last show we had Gene Kelly.
No.
This guy was a friend of Gene Kelly's. That's all I'm going to say.
Good.
And we were going to do the show. We had the actors lined up, and now we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if Stony Brook is going to open or any of our other sites. We were going to do the story of Fanny Bryce, I can say that, at one of our locations, and we were going to update her entire story. I don't think that's going to happen for Christmas either. I hate to say that.
We'll see.
But we'll see if it comes through or not. We're hoping we can do that for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you again in the future. Goodbye, Sachum.
Thank you.
Take care.